Hello all, welcome to this week's live stream. I do this normally every Friday and we take a look at perhaps where the opportunities might be in the week ahead. Take a look at all the major markets, all the usual stuff, indices, FX, gold, oil, Bitcoin, all of that. It feels like it's been a bit of a quiet week, I think, so far. Obviously, US and UK was shut on Monday for the bank holiday anyway. We had a bit, this is the NASDAQ here, a bit of excitement in the overnight market on Wednesday night, UK time, because the US courts ruled that the tariffs were, not illegal, whatever they ruled. Anyway, market liked it, but then gave it all back again yesterday. And here we are. I did buy the NASDAQ yesterday, just into an hour before the close. So I'm in that trade, but we'll take a look at this in a bit more detail as usual. If there's anything you want looking at, if you put it in the chat on the YouTube, and we'll take a look at it when we've looked at other stuff. But for now, let's get into it and do some housekeeping. Just do a risk warning. This presentation is only for educational purposes. It does not contain and should not be construed as containing investment advice or an investment recommendation or an offer of or solicitation for a transaction in any financial instrument. David Jones accepts no responsibility for any use that may be made of these comments and for any consequences that result. You should consider whether you understand how spread bets, CFDs, futures, foreign exchange work, and whether you can afford to take the high risk of losing your money. Trading is risky. Okay, there you go. Next week, I haven't done the economic calendar again, so let's look at it in real time. The big thing for next week is the payrolls on Friday, but before that, let's have a quick look at what's going on. Oh, where's it gone? Next week, apply. There we go. Let's see what we've got next week. So there's some manufacturing data on Monday for the US. I think economic data at the moment, I mean, it is pretty important. Tuesday, we've got EU inflation data. Inflation, I think, still a bit of a hot topic, or warmish topic, so that might be interesting. Tuesday morning. Wednesday, some more services data out of the US. Thursday, is that US, not US, EU interest rate decision. That might be interesting. As usual, it's the press conference around these that tend to cause the most excitement. And then Friday is probably the big one, but we do have in Friday morning, we do have EU GDP, so how well is the European economy doing? That'd be interesting. You know, given all the talk about tariffs in recent months, you know, I would have thought that a focus on economies and economic growth is going to be a big thing. And then Friday afternoon, my time in the UK, an hour ahead of the US market open, we've got the non-farm payrolls. So the US unemployment numbers. So what's that saying? 130,000 expected. Is that expected or is that last time? Yeah, expected. So 130,000 expected. Let's see what that looks like on Friday of next week. So that's the big one for me. Next Friday, this time next week. So when we do next week's live stream, they'll have been out for an hour. So we'll see. We'll see what all that looks like. But otherwise, let's get into it. Let's start off with US indices. I mean, for me, the recovery is still going. You know, it did hit briefly. This is the overnight market on Thursday, Wednesday night, Thursday morning. This is the S&P. So it did hit fresh recovery highs. You know, so if I was looking for a target, the obvious target now is do these markets get back to the old all-time highs from Feb in the US? You know, so if you thought, well, actually, do you know what? US markets are doomed. This is the perfect shorting opportunity with this rally that we've had since April. You know, if you thought this is just a bounce before the market falls off a cliff again, then going short with stops above the old highs up here somewhere is one idea. For me at the moment, you know, I'm still going with that trend that's been in place since April, the April lows. So that's been going for almost 2 months now. So about 7 weeks or so that's been going. But it hasn't been the most exciting of weeks, I don't think. Where did it close last week? It closed here. Monday was closed. So this was the overnight market Monday. But real trading has been a little bit up and down, not that exciting. But overall, I would say that it's still positive, US markets. NASDAQ, like I said, I'm in the NASDAQ. I've got to stop the other side of 21,000 from last night just to see if the markets are going to have a bit of a bounce today. Let's see. But again, NASDAQ, similar sort of outlook to the S&P 500. So I think the question is, do we see the breakout to all-time highs? Let's see. Let's see what happens. So that's that. DAX has been a bit boring this week. We did have, very briefly, is that during real trading? No, that's in the overnight market. But we have had a fresh all-time high from the DAX this week again. So that's where we are on the German market, going back to 2022. So 2.5 years ago, the market's doubled in 2.5 years. This is where we are. It broke out to all-time highs again, beginning of May, and it has continued to push a little bit higher. So for me, that's a market that's positive. If I had to do a trade on the DAX, I'd be a buyer. It's a bit messed up because of the moves we saw last Friday on more tariff talk. But overall, I think it's positive. The market has hit all-time highs this week, so that's the sign of a strong market. So so I'd buy a dip. It'd be interesting if it comes under a bit of pressure next week. Let's see what happens. FTSE, again, a little bit of a boring week in the FTSE, but trading where it was about a week and a half ago, the FTSE. But again, I'd say that the recovery is still intact. The question here, as it is with the US markets, does it break out through fresh all-time highs, the old all-time highs from early March, about 8,900? Let's see what happens there. France index is not near all-time highs. Italian isn't. Oh yeah, the Italian has. The Italian index has broken out in May and has been a bit sideways since then. So there we go. Yeah, the Japanese market. I'd still be thinking about going short. Because I think whenever we've looked at this year, that trend has been down since the end of Jan. It's been a bit sideways for a good few months before that. Down since end of Jan, bounced back a bit. But is it getting ready to roll over again? So for me, that's the one stock market index at the moment that I'd be leaning short rather than long. So that's it. But no change really this week for stock market indices. Perhaps not the most exciting week, but there we are. Okay. What else? Dollar index. I wonder if there's a trade this afternoon in the dollar index. I was thinking I still might do this actually. The dollar index this afternoon. So the dailies look like that. So the dailies, the dollar index has been sliding since the middle of Jan. So we're 4 months into this. So absolutely you could argue, well, the trend is still down on the dollar index. Sell the rallies. In the great scheme of things, over the last few years, it's a bit sideways. And over the last month or so, it's been trying to stage a recovery. So it's a bit all over the place, to be honest. But I was wondering, we had a gap higher on Thursday, early hours of Thursday. It sold off. It has held. Is there a little trade there to see, or do we go back up to Thursday night's high, which is about 100 points higher than where we are now? So that's maybe an idea, and with a stop at least below this Monday's low. So it's not the most jump out and grab you by the neck trade, but I think it's interesting. Again, if you were going to take the view, well, that correction is over and blah blah blah, buy it, and do we hook round and go back up? So that is a trade that I might do later. See what happens this afternoon. But yeah, dollar index, all of it up and down. The other trade I've got on is gold. So let's take a look at gold. I bought it this week, and it's another one. It's flip-flopped around. So I think I bought it in here somewhere on Tuesday. So it's been in my favour. It's been against me. It's in my favour, and now it's back to pretty much where I bought it. So another market that has been perhaps a bit sideways over the last 6 weeks or so. Absolutely on gold, the big trend is up. Let's take that off for now. We know, I think, if you watch markets, it's been a great few years for the price of gold. It's been a great year this year for the price of gold. The last time we had an all-time high was just over a month ago. So again, for me, it's still positive. Maybe it needs a deeper dip to flush out some weak holders and see if the buyers come back in. But I bought it this week just to see if it was going to run up to like 3,400 again. And so far it's not done very much. So that's that. Silver, just sideways silver, boring. Just, I mean, I do look at it once or twice a week, but you know, we had that multi-year high for silver in October last year, the highest it's been since 2012. So it was a decade plus high, and it's not done anything since then. You know, so a bit dull. So yeah, that's that. What else? Oil. I was in oil this week. I came out of it for a profit, but a small profit. Again, it's sideways, isn't it? A lot of these markets are boring at the moment. Be careful what you wish for and all that after what we've been through the last 3 or 4 months. But yeah, I bought it in here somewhere and sold it up here somewhere. There's an argument for being a buyer in oil. You know, it's been knocked back to the lows for the last 3 weeks, ahead of $60. So there's absolutely an argument for being a buyer there. It just doesn't have much of a trend up or down, you know, in that time frame. So yeah, the big trend, I'd argue, over the last 3 years has still been down. It's just not done very much over the last sort of 6-7 weeks or so. So that's the price of oil. Natural gas, it's boring as well. Why is everything so boring? I'd still be a buyer. You know, I'd be a buyer with a stop the other side of 285. That's what I would do in natural gas. Because for me, yeah, that we had, you know, it did hit a multi-year high in March. It's drifted since then. These old lows have held. So, yeah, I'd still be a buyer rather than a seller. But again, it's not doing very much, is it? Let's get into the crazy world of crypto. Is that going to look a bit more exciting? I suppose what was interesting, and it was interesting, you know, Bitcoin did have, a week ago, did hit fresh all-time highs, you know, and for me, a market that hits all-time highs, that's a positive thing. So I'd be a buyer of the dip in Bitcoin whenever the dip stops dipping. So that would be the trade I would do on Bitcoin. So if I flip this over to the hourlies, you know, if I thought the trend looked something like that, it's fallen out of that trend, but I'd be inclined to give it one last chance, buy it with a stop under 100k. That would be the trade I would do if I had to do a trade on Bitcoin. But the flip side is you could absolutely take the view, well, the market broke out to fresh all-time highs last week and it's giving it up pretty quickly. So is that a bit of an exhaustion push higher and go short with a stop above 112? 112 on the nose. Oh, okay, there you go. You know, so that, I mean, I would go with the most recent trend, but you could absolutely make the argument for being a seller of Bitcoin because we haven't had the follow through up there. So yeah, what else is there? Is there anything that looks interesting? Even in the commodities, they look a bit boring. Cocoa had an absolute nuts move here just over a year ago now, early 2024. But then from April last year to now has been, you know, broadly sideways. We had the false breakout here that came to nothing in December. From a short-term point of view, you could absolutely make the argument, you know, our little trend in cocoa has been chugging higher for a month, so I'm going to be a buyer with a stop below 9,000. That's a possibility. But the great scheme of things, still a bit sideways. Orange juice, you know, we had that massive sell-off in orange juice from December into April. Is it making a base? Have we seen the worst in orange juice? I think that's an interesting long-term trade. If you thought that we'd seen the worst, then be a buyer with a stop under that recent low. So there's that. Sugar, I mentioned that in the WhatsApp group this morning. Sugar has just dropped back to its lowest levels since September 22. So a 2.5 year low in sugar. Is it going to hold? Are we going to see it rally like we did back then? So that's an interesting market. But again, I think that's one to wait for next week. So yeah, it's all a bit. It's not been the most exciting week. But then we have had some crazy markets, you know, so there are going to be periods, obviously, when things calm down. But not too much jumping out at me. You know, for me, this afternoon, I do quite fancy a dollar index trade just to see, okay, do we get a move 100 points higher? And if we get a move 100 points higher, do we get a move another 200 points back to the highs from mid-May? That's maybe an interesting trade. So that is maybe something I'll do this afternoon. I've still got the NASDAQ trade, which is about 60 points against me at the moment. Let's see what happens with that this afternoon. But otherwise, a little bit quiet, So what we'll do now, we'll jump into your questions, do a quick commercial break. I run a WhatsApp group. I do a daily update, normally 2 updates a day. An update in the morning, markets I'm looking at, trades I've got running, what looks interesting, levels to watch, and one in the afternoon. Answer any questions as they come in throughout the day. And we do regular webinars every month. If you want to try it out, use the link is in the description down below. Use the code YouTube when you sign up and you get 20% off the first month. The recent webinar I did was on day trading indices, where to place stops, why entry is not all important, it's not the be all and end all, how to quickly decide on a trade, and then managing the position. That's the most important bit of trading. So I did that recent webinar. If you sign up for the WhatsApp group, you'll get access to the recording of that. So that's it, and the link is down below. Let's have a look. Let's have a look at what you want looking at. Hello, Nick. Can we have a look at Kroger buy the dip? Kroger company buy. I remember these. Yes, is my very quick answer to that. Nice trend, isn't it? So that's interesting. Kroger. What do they do? Retail food retail. Broke out to all-time highs in Feb. Really have ridden out all of the craziness that we've had in US stock markets. You wouldn't even know it was going on, would you, looking at that chart? So for me, I'd be a buyer because the trend is up. As usual, where would my stop go? I mean, I think 62 is a nice place for a stop. I quite like that. Should we do that? Have I got that? Let's do a trade. Kroger. So let's have a look. Let's try and do this half sensibly. I think I did a trade on the S&P last week, and that worked out well in last week's live stream. If you go back, if you can be bothered to go back and look at it, I did do that trade, and that did all right. I came out of that earlier this week. So the breakout was there. So if I'm going to be a buyer, where's my stop going to go? Other side of 62 or thereabouts. Let's do it. 61.50. There we go. 65 quid risk, done. Bang, bang. Okay. Yes, I quite like that trade. Well spotted. So for me, my target would be, can it get back up to 73 plus? But what a great trend that's been. What's that done over? A great trend over the years as well, going back to 2019. Didn't even get that affected by the COVID volatility, did it? So 2019, it was $21 a share. So yeah, interesting one. So for me, as long as it's above that 62, that trend remains up. So let's see. And 3M on a breakout. MMM. So on a breakout. Yeah, it's been a bit. I mean, that has been caught up in all the market volatility, hasn't it? I mean, I would buy it because we had that downtrend that had been in place for a long time, going back to at least May 21. So we had 3 years of downtrend, came out of it last year. It's been a bit choppy this year. Yes, that for me would be a wait and see. But yeah, if it did manage to break through, let's call it 160 for sake of argument. If it broke through 160 next week, I think that's an interesting one, isn't it? So it's all a bit sideways at the moment. But yeah, let's see what that looks like over the next few weeks or so. But yeah, it'd be nice to have a dip. I'd buy the dip, but if it breaks out again, because that 156 has been such a problem. Interesting one. The chartered market technician charter, do you believe in it? It's quite expensive. Chartered market technician. I've heard about it a lot. I've never actually done it. Is it the American thing? I did the UK's Society of Technical Analysts exam. That's what I did back in 1995. Can you believe it? Yeah, and this is the American one, isn't it? So I think, I mean, you know, I lecture on the Society of Technical Analysts exam, and so I think all these sort of things give you a great grounding in understanding markets and understanding technical analysis and all that sort of stuff. And that's how I started my trading journey, if we're going to X factor it all up. But I think it's one thing being a qualified technical analyst, and it's another thing translating that into trading. So I would say if it's going to help you from a work point of view, then maybe. From a personal investor / trading point of view, in my opinion, I'd maybe question it. You know, I do run a trading course. Get on my website and find out about my trading course. But yeah, I think it's up to you. I'm sure it'd be really interesting to do. And it definitely helped me from a career point of view back then in the 90s. Whether you translate that into trading is, I think, only a question you can answer. So there's my honest opinion on that. Sterling yen, sterling yen, sterling yen, sterling yen. I was in that earlier this year in the trade for ages, got bored with it and came out of it in the end. I mean, on the dailies, it's all a bit drifty sideways, isn't it? On the hourlies, you could absolutely make the argument to be a buyer, couldn't you? Because the trend has been up on sterling yen since April now. So if I was a buyer at this absolute moment in time, I'd have a stop the other side of 192 somewhere. That would be the trade I would do. And that's a fair enough trade because the trend is up and blah, 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 all the usual. So yeah, so that's, I think that's reasonable enough. But on the dailies, it's all a bit sideways, but you can absolutely see that trend in April. Euro Aussie. Did we look at this last week? Euro Aussie dollar. Euro, I remember it had a big move and then it drifted, didn't it? After being sideways for some time. That's it. Look at that. What a brilliant memory. I think I said last week to buy it, didn't I? And I would buy it. I'd rather have bought it last week because it was a bit lower. I mean, if I was a buyer on the dailies, I'd probably still want my stop the other side of 170.50, which is a 600 point stop. You know, on the hourlies, what would you do on the hourlies? It's not a market I would trade, but you know, on the hourlies, that trend has been up for a couple of weeks now, hasn't it? So yeah, I'd be a buyer. It's just where would I buy? You know, a more aggressive stop rather than that 170.50 is the other side of this week's lows. Let's say 174.60. So yeah, I mean that trend is up. I'd go with the trend. Blah blah blah. That's what I would do. So yeah, I'd be a buyer. It's just whether I'd buy it now or wait for a bit of a dip and then buy it then. So yeah. Or maybe all the sideways markets are just symptomatic of slow summer trading. Yeah, it could be. I mean, we did have a bit of excitement last year, didn't we? Because markets sold off in July, August. That was July, August last year. Boom. They were still rallying into it though. I mean, I just think, it's been a crazy year, hasn't it? You know, we've had a stack of volatility so far this year. So maybe we are just due a period of sideways, not much going on, you know? Don't know. Platinum and palladium. Now, I think these are still a little bit stuck, these markets. But let's have a look. So platinum, is that platinum? Yeah. I did trade that a bit, I think last year. I mean, for me, it's still stuck in that big sideways range, isn't it? That it's been in now for 2 years in that range. So if I had to do anything, I'd be a seller because we're at the top of the range. And whenever it gets up here, over the last couple of years, we've seen the sellers come out. So that's what I would do, be a seller. Because it's just all a bit sideways and meandering, isn't it? That's what I would do. You know, it's had a great run since April. Well, it's up 10% or so. And a bit more since April. Actually, it's more like 20%, to be honest. Yeah, but I would just be a bit concerned that whenever it's been up here, we've seen it run out of steam. And palladium, I think, is going to be pretty similar. Yeah. So palladium, this was a great market. I'm sure I say this every time I look at it. Great market for me back then, 2018, 2019, and into COVID, because it was a great trend. And it's done nothing. You know, it's done again. We're in this big sideways range. It recently popped up to the top of the range and it sold all the way off again. So if you thought it was going to have another go at the top of the range, there's the argument to be the buyer, isn't there? So if we thought, all right, we're gonna have another go at 1,050, be a buyer and put a stop under 935 or something like that is one idea, maybe. So yeah, I don't know. So not too exciting for me at the moment, just a bit range bound, these markets. And let's have a look at Dell, Kevin, because you mentioned those last night, and they had results out, didn't they, yesterday? What have they done off the results? Oh, not very much by the looks of it. Okay. Did they have earnings? They did have earnings last night, didn't they? Yeah, there's the open. Yeah, it hasn't really changed though, that overall downtrend, is it? Perfect time to go short. Dell, there you go. So let's see, but no, not much excitement off those earnings yesterday, and that's it really. So yeah, it's a bit dull, but sometimes it is dull, and sometimes there's lots to do. My Nasdaq trade is under a bit of pressure. Let's see what happens this afternoon. What's that low there? That's Tuesday's low. Let's see if that holds. What's it like a 10-minute? Let's see what happens there. But otherwise, perhaps not the most exciting end to the week. Dollar index, what does that look like? That looks like it's strengthened a little bit. Yeah, so bit of a quieter week this week. Payrolls next Friday. Lots of other data out as well, so that could be a bit more interesting. I'll come back and do it all again next week. If you'd like to join the WhatsApp group, give it a go. If you want to find out who I trade with and open an account, they're very good. Trade with them for a few years. Go to bit.ly/David Trade. Any questions, drop me an email, dj@davidjonestrading.co.uk. Always happy to answer any questions. But otherwise, I'm pretty much done for the week. We'll see what happens at that dollar index. That could be an interesting one to watch. And we'll see where everything is this time next week. All right, have a good weekend. And thanks for coming along. See you next week. Ba-da-ba.